The title for this, I think Alan and I finally decided on the title. I like the idea of the lion's den. I thought it was a great title for this. Titles are fun to do. They tell you to try to keep it 4 words or less. I don't know if that's because you're all challenged to where you can't handle more than 4 words. I'm not sure. But the lion's den. What I've been looking at, and I had printed something out, and I can share it later if people want it. I forgot to print it out for everybody. I got busy cracking eggs in the kitchen. But I want to tell you what's going on in your society. I spend a lot of time for myself out of just sheer curiosity, mainly that. The other is to figure out how to navigate the society that we now live in. There are 2 main elements, and I've mentioned before that people are losing empathy, but there are 2 main elements that we've seriously neglected in our society, and you're going to see this, and it's going to make sense to you when I show you. It took me a while to navigate this. The 2 words you want to think about are the word character and virtue. Now, what has happened, and it started way back, it really accelerated at the turn of the century. It probably started back in about the 1700s. What happened is people started to gradually shift from this idea of character and virtue as being the most important part of your existence. What we have shifted to, and please everyone hear me on this because you need to catch this because it's going to help you understand a lot. What we've shifted to is a self-identity that is involved in materialism. Are you with me? You all need to hear this, you really do. We have gone from being concerned about character and virtues to being concerned about consuming. Okay? We become consumer-based thinkers. It's not evil, but it's wrong. It does not work. And it is the reason why you're seeing some of the things happening in your society right now. Let me give you some stuff. Character is basically mental, moral qualities. Virtue is behavior showing high moral standards. Okay? So what's happened in your society? Now just think of your own life. There is very little virtue left in your day-to-day life. Your TV shows, your music, your conversations, your language. Think about it. There's very little moral value structure left in people anymore. You want to know why people are going around shooting people? The reason why they're doing that is they no longer see people as having immense value. They no longer see people as needing to be honored and respected and revered. Don't miss this now because we're all guilty of this. Your language really and truly shows your lack of concern for other people. Did you hear what I just said? If your language is not language that can be spoken in the presence of everyone, then you are speaking in a manner that is not virtuous and it lacks character. Now that's a hard one, isn't it? But we live in a society right now that does not take character qualities and virtue serious. It's a problem. We are now more concerned about whether or not we are getting things and entertainment that we want instead of characteristics of a quality person. Let me give you a quote. Society shifted from producing to consuming. Ideas of what constituted the self began to transform. The rise of psychology, the introduction of mass-produced consumer goods, and the expansion of leisure time offered people new ways of forming their identity and presenting it to the world. In place of defining themselves through the civilization of virtue, or the cultivation of virtue, people's hobbies, dress, and material possessions became the new means of defining and expressing the self. Sussman observed that the shift through the changing content of self-improvement manuals, which went from emphasizing moral imperatives and work to personal fulfillment and self-actualization. The vision of self-sacrifice began to yield to that of self-realization. What you've had happen, and if you listen, you're going to catch this. In your thinking processes now, the bulk of us as people are thinking only in terms of what we can get that will make us feel better and happy. We are not thinking in terms of being a moral person, a person of high quality and character. People with good character are self-sacrificing people. Okay? Now, that should be convicting for each and every one of us. Because I can tell you that in this room, I know for a fact, the odds are that everyone in this room is struggling with the concept of being a self-sacrificing individual and thinking predominantly in terms of getting out of life what they want instead of living for the right reasons. Now, I want to show you something in this that you're going to probably find a little interesting. And then I'll get you back on track here. What is happening in the church, especially in this town, and this is not me picking on any belief. I'm not doing that. All I'm doing is stating facts so you can understand some things that most people fail to understand. In this town, there is this major draw that has occurred. And that is the reason why we have like Faith Life, Kenneth Copeland, Faith Wisdom Church. You know, and again, I'm not bashing churches. Do not misunderstand. I'm giving you just some facts to look at. Even First Baptist Church. What people are doing now is you have people that are moving to an area like this to feed that concept of I want or I need. I have people that are friends of mine that moved here to go to Keith Moore's church, and Keith Moore's church predominantly preaches prosperity. Most of these churches do now. They present you with excess because they may not even know they're doing this, but they are catering to this shift that has occurred. We don't understand why we're drawn to the mega churches, but the reason why we are drawn to mega churches is because they're meeting that psychological or that need now of you seeing yourself as being important. So they go to the places that cater to that conditioning that has occurred. Okay? How many people in here would want to be a nurse? Not too many. Well, there's some. You'd have to stick your hand out. But think about it for a minute. Who would want to work in ER? The idea of sacrificing that much of my heart, I'll give you one. Brian Ruskin, I mention him all the time. His wife works with the babies that are in crisis. I told you she prays every day before she goes to work that she doesn't hurt any of them because she's literally dealing with babies that are hurt. There's no way I could do that. Most of us want nothing to do with anything that involves sacrifice. We'll do little nickel and dime things because we can handle that. And that lets us walk away and go, oh yeah, well I did this good deed. But the truth of the matter is, as Americans especially, we are looking for what is going to gratify our wants and our needs. That is not how God has things structured. So we have a society that has moved away from developing character. We don't even think about it in reference to our kids like we should. We are more concerned, and I've said this before, but it really is a problem. We are more concerned about our kids' entertainment than we are them learning virtue and character. One of the finest things you can do with your children is put them in the arena of serving the needs of others. Not their needs being served, but serving the needs of others. It's unhealthy for you to gratify and continually pursue trying to gratify yourself. It's not healthy. How do I know that? Nature itself proves this point. When I think it was the Russian astronauts, they spent a massive amount of time one time out in space. And the problem they've always had with space is lack of use of the muscles and the stress on the bones and stuff. It starts to deteriorate. Okay, now don't miss this point because it's great. It literally starts to break down. So they developed these spacesuits for these guys that had almost like rubber bands. That's the only way I know how to explain it. That forced their muscles and stuff to, so they wouldn't go into, what's the word? It's a big, that's it. Now astronauts have to exercise 2 hours a day in space. Now, gravity is something you don't think about much. You think in terms of gravity as its purpose is to keep you on the planet. But it actually serves a greater purpose. The level of gravity on this planet is designed to where you actually have to use your muscles and your legs to build muscle and to keep you physically functioning. If you didn't have gravity causing resistance, you would break down. You would become a noodle. We'd be all rubbery. Okay? Anybody who understands physical condition knows that you have to work your muscles. You have to have resistance for development. Okay? So anytime a human being is moving in the direction of no resistance, no stretching, there's only one option. You will break down. If you move in the direction of finding just simply personal gratification, the structure won't work. You are seeing on your planet this very day, in your communities, in this country, politically, in the families, in the schools, in the churches, you're seeing the effect of losing the concept of virtue and character as being the most important thing. You are seeing the effect of a society who is now obsessed with making money, having all this medical insurance stuff covered, having the best cars, having the best vacations, the best clothes. You're seeing the byproduct of throwing virtue and character out the window. Okay? It's very, very true. You're seeing the churches in trouble because most Christians are now saying, I don't want to go to church to serve God or others. I want to go to church to be served. Don't miss that, everyone. Because I'm telling you, if that's your mindset, you are destroying your families. You're destroying other families. You are hurting the world. Okay? I honestly, and this is not, I'm not rebuking, I'm just trying to say, look at this logically. This is just sheer logic. If I do not demonstrate in the lives of my family members and you all what it means to be virtuous and to have good character, if I am doing the opposite of that, every time I do the opposite, I am causing someone either confusion or damage, especially in a position of leadership. If you're a parent, same thing. Student with another student. I mean, they will follow you. I remember I had one of the elders of my dad's church, John Krug, say to me when I was young, I told you this, he looked at me and he said, why do you do it? And I said, what? And he goes, you know these kids do everything you tell them? And they did. And he's like, why do you do it? Because I was getting them to do everything bad I could get them to think to get them to do. Because I was bad. But it actually caused problems. I hurt some people. because I did not at that time in my life consider virtue and character as being something of value. If you could take this society, the United States, we'll say, and if you could convince them to move back towards virtuous thinking and pursue quality in the area of their character, in the media, in music, in the churches, in the government, you don't think things wouldn't change for the better? Do you think maybe that some of the shootings might stop? Because if you're a virtuous person, if you're a person of high quality and character, you're not going to go shoot somebody. But you've got a society right now that is saying to everybody, it's better to not be virtuous. It's funny to not be virtuous. Every sitcom violates everything about high moral character and virtue. Every single one of them. Most of the movies I know you all watch seriously violate. Seriously. It's why I watch old movies. It's safer. I'm back in the 1940s and 30s. I watched one from 1936 last night. It's safer. I do not want my grandkids to be violated by my lack of concern for their innocence. Because I've decided that virtue is not important in my life, or character. What I watch, what I listen to, what I say affects everyone around me. And the idea of losing somebody because I didn't care enough to be a gentleman, or in cases of women, ladies, it matters. It matters immensely. And I'm sorry that everybody now in the church runs around going, what's happening to our world? What's happening? This is awful. I can't believe they're doing this stuff. Let me be very honest. They are doing this stuff because the people in the church are not pursuing virtue and character. It's just the truth. We are not taking it serious. Go read some of the old writings of the early preachers from the 1800s and the 1700s. It's very serious at that time. It's not now. If you're in a position of leadership, you have no business not seeing that as the most important part of your life. None. None. Gave you a little more than I wanted to. Let me give you something else to look at. The word character is a Greek word that means to carve or scratch. So it's to imprint. You know, it's to make a mark, right? There are many things, I'm reading this, there are many things that engrave our character upon the clay of our lives and shape our character for better or for worse into a unique set of scratches and grooves. Our character begins to be shaped from the very time we are born and is influenced by where we grow up, how we are raised, the examples of our parents that are provided through religious and academic education and relationship. Our character can be dramatically altered by a life-changing tragedy, the contraction of a disease, a severe accident, the death of a parent, child, or spouse. Such events may turn a man bitter or cynical. That is what you're dealing with. One of the greatest influences of your character are those you surround yourself with. And those of you that are young people, you better listen to that one. Because the people you associate with, you will pick up on their habits. And if they are not positive, if they are not God-fearing, if they are not virtuous, if they are smart aleck, if they are disrespectful, then you are going to learn that attitude. You hang out with people that have good character, you'll learn good character. I can tell you that the complacency of many parents to keep their children around people who are people of quality. The parents that neglect that time where they are around people who take very seriously the things of God are hurting their kids. So when they mess up, don't sit there and go, I don't know what went wrong with them. What do you mean you don't know? What are you letting them listen to and watch? And who are you associating with? Hard stuff, isn't it? But it's true. It really is true. What are you doing in the area of building character among your family members? You can't just complain about how everything's broken. You can't just complain. Your words, your actions, your preferences for leaders are an effect on the society. Character needs to show itself to be free and above circumstances. Let me give you this one. I didn't bring it with me, but there was a great statement made about that. Your circumstances have the ability to mold and shape your character either for better or for worse. Let me give you an example to help illustrate it. Clams. Clams are a great illustration. People think it's a grain of sand, but it's usually a parasite. They'll get a parasite and it causes pain. It agitates, it irritates. And that resistance happening, you know what happens? They make a pearl. God has designed circumstances in your life to occur that create pain, that create a situation where you're stressed or you have to make a movement. You are either going to allow that pain and that hurt to develop you into a pearl, or you're going to allow it to destroy you. There's two ways. You can either live your life looking at your circumstances and going, I quit, I give up. Or you can look at it in terms of, okay, I know God is in this somehow, some way, shape, or form, and his intention is from this bad. He honestly is wanting to shape and mold me into what I need to be. So through pain or stress, you will either develop a greater understanding of truth and right responses, or you will go the opposite direction. If you have the right attitude about who this God is that we serve, then you will let those circumstances push you in the direction of becoming that pearl he wants you to be. Yeah. No, you're funny. I love it. Character is an inner movement which encounters and withstands the shock of change and outward things. So it must issue itself from a life that directs itself. Now let me explain that one to you. Character is an inner movement which encounters and withstands the shock of change and outward things. And it must therefore issue from a life that directs itself. There is a point in time where you have to make a conscious decision to not let your circumstances cause your character to fall. That's why I wanted to name this The Lion's Den. So, Alan, take me please to Daniel 6. I'm going to read all of it, and we'll just start taking pieces out of it. And oh wow, I've ran long, haven't I? You all don't have anything to do today, right? It pleases Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was one, to whom these satraps should give account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other presidents and satraps because of excellent spirit was in him. An excellent spirit was in him. Don't miss all that little stuff that's in there. You're getting his character here. And the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Then the president and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. But they could find no ground for complaint or any fault, because he was faithful. No error or fault was found in him. He was a man of character and virtue. Next. Then these men said, we shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. Satan understands that. Those of you who aspire to be godly people, Satan will try to force the situation to where that becomes the issue, which challenges your virtue and your character to its core. Because you can be forced to a situation where you have to make a decision to do right or wrong, and in that moment, it will determine what your character actually is and the strength of that character and virtue. Then these presidents and satraps came by agreement to the king and said to him, O King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps, the counselors and the governors, are agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god or man for 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Let me tell you what just happened there. That is humanism to its core. Literally, these guys have shown up and they have said to the king, here's the deal, buddy. Because we're Medo-Persians, you make a law, it's etched into stone. There's no way out of it. So for 30 days, every god and every person is less than you are, Darius. You were the issue here. You were what matters here. For 30 days, everybody's going to treat you like you were the most important one in the kingdom of the Medo-Persians. Humanism in its biggest, most pronounced form is me, I am more important than my God. I am more important than you all. I am the focal point. It's humanism at its core. That is what they're offering him. The idea of him being the issue. Next. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. Therefore, King Darius signed the document and injunction. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows in his upper chamber, opened them towards Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he had done previously. He knew that under the laws of the Medes, he's 83 years old now, under the laws of the Medes and the Persians, you cannot violate that law. Now those windows he's opening, people can't see him, they're high up windows. But he's opening the windows and continuing in his character to serve his God with complete and total subjection. Too many Christians think that's not necessary. It is necessary. We should be subjecting ourselves to the full authority of God and his word. He did. That's a man of character. That's integrity. Integrity. It's doing what you say you're going to do. Too many Christians are comfortable giving God lip service but not doing what he says. We're guilty. We're guilty. Then these men came by agreement and found Daniel making petition and plea before his God. Then they came near and said before the king concerning the injunction, O king, did you not sign an injunction that anyone who makes petition to any god, you see it, and he throws, so here he's stuck. He made a humanistic decision. He's stuck. He can't get out of it. He's got to throw Daniel in the den. And he respects Daniel so much. If you remember the first part, he was thinking about putting Daniel over all the kingdoms of the Medo-Persians. Now, the Medo-Persian kingdoms were divided up into groups. The group that Daniel was over, and this is just real quick history, was over the Babylonian sector of the kingdom of the Medo-Persians. So Daniel is highly respected as a man of character. Now the king has been forced by these other guys who are not people of character. The king now has to throw him in the lion's den. The reason for the lion's den, that is how they killed people that were criminals. The Babylonians would burn them with fire. The Persians believed that fire was sacred, so they didn't do it that way. They would throw him to the lions. Take me to the next one. Then they answered and said before the king, Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judea, pays no attention to you, O king, or the injunction you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. Solomon, I believe, was the one that started that, and the Muslims picked up on it. Then the king, when he heard these words, was much distressed and set his mind to deliver Daniel. He's trying to figure out how to turn it around now. And he labored till the sun went down to rescue him. He couldn't figure out how to do it because you can't change the law of the Medes and Persians. Can't do it. Next. Then these men came by agreement to the king and said to the king, Now, O king, that is a law of the Medes and the Persians that no injunction or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed. Then the king commanded it, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. Let me help you here a little bit. They seized him, 83 years old, took him to the pit and threw him in. Do you think maybe it hurt? Pressure? Pain? The king declared to Daniel, May your God, whom you serve, continually deliver you. What happens if at this point Daniel says, forget that. Look where I am. That's it. I'm cursing God. I'm out. No. What is happening in this very moment? Because he is a man of character. Who's he affecting? The king. Because he's holding to a standard that has great value to him. So much so that he has deliberately allowed himself to be arrested and thrown into this lion den, knowing that he can die for his virtue, his integrity, and his character. Okay? Next. And a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of the Lord's, that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No diversions were brought to him, and sleep fled from him. That tells you how impressive Daniel was, by the way. Then at break of day the king arose, went in haste to the den of lions. As he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in the tone of anguish. The king declared to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God. How many people would say that about you in the way you represent God in your life? Has your God whom you serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions? Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. May God set his angel, my God sent his angel and shut the lion's mouth, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him. Let's put it this way, a man of good character. And also before you. O king, I have done you no harm. Next. The king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. The animals hadn't eaten him. And the king commanded, of course, he threw all those other guys in, their children, their bones were broken to pieces. The lions had a heyday. Go to the next one. I'm pressing time. Please. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth being in their kingdom. And there was more than one language they were speaking, but that's a history lesson. Peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion, people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. There's the glitch. His kingdom or yours? His kingdom requires you to sacrifice for his kingdom. Now, he graciously provides for us, but we were created and saved for a purpose of serving that kingdom. Please, everyone, the churches are not teaching kingdom-minded thinking. They are trying to fix your marriages, make you money, tell you God wants you happy and wealthy, that, you know, all these toys and bells and whistles, those things aren't bad in themselves. But if a Christian is not focused on living their life in servitude of Christ, they are not living out the Christian life that they're supposed to be living. They're not. They're not. It should be the dominant desire of your heart to want to serve the kingdom of Christ. The dominant desire of your heart. Above everyone in your family, your children, your wife, your husband, your careers, your things, above all of that, your focus should be that kingdom. Daniel understood that. Daniel understood that. That young boy at 17, at the oldest, was taken into captivity, into the Babylonian Empire, and even as a young boy, he took very seriously his character, the virtue, who he was in God. He was a Jewish man who believed very firmly in the things of God. Didn't eat what everybody else was eating. He went with water and vegetables and fruit. He didn't drink the wine of the kings. He could have done, he was in Babylon. He could have had a party and nobody would have known back home. But he didn't, did he? Because at that moment in his life even he understood that this is about God. This is all about God. Look at the decree. Do you think just possibly because of Daniel's character, mass numbers of people in this area turn towards the God of the Jewish people? I guarantee it. Especially if Darius is making a decree. How many people very well may have been redeemed, saved by faith, which is what happened in the Old Testament, because of one man's desire to be a man of character? Think about that. You think you don't affect people. You do affect people. Now if you take, you can read the rest for yourself later, because it goes on making the point. So if you take a church of, let's say, I don't know how many are here today. You take a church this size, and if every individual in this church were to commit fully and completely, not to the church, not to me, but to the kingdom of Christ, your purpose in life, if you were to commit and really commit your life and your energies to serving that kingdom, being a person of character, seeing the value of virtue, seeing the value of innocence, and you were to invest yourself in serving that cause, you will have an effect in this community you live in. You will. Why do you think I do what I do? Because most people that are like me in personality, we like to win big. I do what I do where I'm at because I know that God has said to me, Dan, this is where I have you. This is where you will work. You will work here even though you're dealing with a den of lions, which isn't you guys. It's the wrong teaching in the community around us. I'm dealing with all kinds of stuff, so are you. We're in a lion's den. Think about it. You can take the whole world and say it's the lion's den if you want. And you're at a point where you either are living in that moment as everything's around you going wrong for Christ, or you're going to succumb to it which is a lack of character. Let me give you these last points, and I'm not taking that much. Let me give you these. I gave you one. When God allows challenges in your life, it either builds you up or breaks you down. That's up to you. The way you respond to things that are circumstances in your life are up to you. And I've given you great illustrations of that in the past. One individual who was in a concentration camp who made the statement, they can take everything from me, but they cannot take who I am. When challenges come, this is when you become more faithful, not less. Our tendency is when we're being challenged or being hurt to just say, well, God's just let me go. He's not helping. He doesn't care. So instead of becoming more faithful to the cause of Christ, we end up submitting to the things that are actually going to hurt us even more and others. No, that's when you become more faithful. When you're under the gun, that's when you step into it. There's some people that thrive on stress and challenge. There's others that like to run from it. I get it. Living your life for the right reason may get you into trouble. But it also is the way you get out of trouble. Don't miss that. God has it set up that way. I don't know why. You may end up getting thrown in a lion's den. But the way to get out of the trouble you got into by living a godly life it's the same. You get out of it by living a godly life. That's the way you do it. Last thought for you, you can look it up on your own. Mark 4:35, when Jesus is in the boat. That has been one of the most comforting scriptures to me. The waves are literally overtaking the boat. You got these 12 guys in there going, oh, we're going to die. Jesus is sound asleep. He wakes up when they wake him up, not the storm. The storm didn't even bother him. Wasn't even concerned about it. The water's coming in the boat. Jesus wasn't concerned about it. Why? Because he knew the Father. He understood. You know the story. He said, we're going to the other side. They're going to the other side whether water's coming in the boat or not. Your life is in the hands of a God that created everything. Your life is in his hands, and his highest desire is for you to know who he is and the fact that he desires to bless you. There's no question about that. But God understands better than we'll ever understand that blessing comes from the pressure. It doesn't come from things going smoothly. It really does come from the pressure. How do I know that? You all became Christians for some reason. You all have had experiences of God redeeming you in the midst of trials. You've had situations where no baby and all of a sudden a baby. I mean, you've got all kinds of illustrations of God demonstrating. And the whole purpose of it is for you to understand what it is to be one of his people. I've given you a lot. Become people of character. You will change the world. You really will. Let's pray ourselves out. Lord, I pray that you were honored today. I pray that you were the recipient of glory. I pray that our lives would continue to represent who you are, because that's all about you. It is our hope that it's all about you. It is what frees us. Lord, teach us, me included, especially me, to be a man of good character, of great virtue. I pray that you remind us as your people why we're doing what we're doing, and to accept the challenges that you put before us as you growing us and teaching us, and not seeing it as a defeat, but a means to victories. Again, in glorifying your name. Lord, I pray you change the hearts and the minds of each and every one of us, that we become better students of truth. Teach us to help people understand what matters in life instead of just arguing with them. Give us work to do. Develop our joy through your structure. Mold our families to be your families. Mold this church to be your church. And as always, thank you for the forgiveness that you've given us. And that we are your people by grace through faith. Amen. Thanks, kids. How do you turn this off?
And cut.
And cut.
Oh, man.